Alimony, alimony, paying your bills. How do you calculate alimony? So in Texas, alimony is actually called spousal maintenance or contractual alimony. Contractual meaning you can get it by agreement, or spousal maintenance under Chapter 8 of the Texas Family Code says that you're essentially ordered to have to pay spousal maintenance. If you're ordered under Chapter 8 and you don't pay, then you're subject to contempt, including jail. By contractual alimony, you're not able to be jailed for it, but you can still have to pay attorney's fees for the collection of it and be forced to pay and have it collected from a variety of different sources. How do we calculate it? It's based on, can you meet your minimum reasonable needs? Whatever that is. I'll tell you this, a teacher in the state of Texas generally can meet their minimum reasonable needs. Teacher salaries are anywhere from $35,000, $40,000 to $50,000, $60,000 in general. In that type of range, you probably can meet your minimum reasonable needs. So in a high net worth divorce, you're probably able to do that. You may even have more than that in income coming off your investments from the property division portion. You also have to have been applying for jobs and diligently seeking employment in order to qualify for it. No matter how much the other side is making, the maximum amount of spousal maintenance / alimony in Texas is $5,000 a month. Now you can theoretically contract for more than that. Contractually, you can kind of agree to any amount, but the enforceability of it above $5,000 is questionable. May or may not be enforceable. It just depends. Again, enforceability also depends on how good your lawyer is and whether or not you're going to want to go through the problem or hassle with it. We have seen people that have, especially with high net worth, to where the amount of spousal maintenance sometimes is not worth the headache to even try and get it. You know, if you're dealing with a $50 million divorce and you want spousal maintenance that's going to be, $5,000 a month for 5 years, that's $300,000. Just take another $300,000 up front and get it done with. The more that you can eliminate the back and forth between the spouses, the better. So spousal maintenance sounds good in theory, but the payor doesn't like paying it. The receiving spouse is, I'd rather receive something than not receive it, but I'd rather have received it up at the beginning and not have to deal with having to constantly wonder and, hey, now I got something I got to track, and I'm trying not to think about my ex anymore, but every month I get money from my ex. And what does that do? It triggers an emotional and psychological response in me and thoughts about my ex when I'm trying to move on. And do I want to be, still tethered to them in some kind of way? If I can get spousal maintenance prepaid by a larger percentage of a property division, I'm almost always going to pick that. Sometimes we need spousal maintenance, though, in order to qualify someone for a mortgage. So if you're going to take out a loan, you have to have a certain amount of income, and you have to have, I think most mortgage brokers want 4 months worth of actually received spousal maintenance, and it be in a written order for the banks to consider that an actual income source for the purposes of getting a loan. The difference between temporary and permanent alimony, technically in Texas, is called spousal maintenance. Temporary means from now until the time that the divorce is final. Permanent or final spousal maintenance can last for anywhere from 5 years or less. That's from the time that the divorce is granted forward. How do you modify alimony agreements? So you modify alimony agreements, very limited circumstances. One is if the person is laid off and has a permanent income change, then they typically will try and get it modified down. Modifications on spousal maintenance are not very common. Let's say you have an 8-year marriage where you know that you don't qualify for spousal maintenance until year 10. They have every incentive to make sure that the divorce lasts another 2 years so that the final trial is after that 10th year, and at the final trial they qualify for spousal maintenance. What a judge will do sometimes is say, I'm going to give you 4 months worth of spousal maintenance and that's it. Because they want that person to not be incentivized by 2 years worth of temporary spousal maintenance that would qualify them for spousal maintenance on a permanent. And if you incentivize somebody to not settle, then in order to get them to settle, your cost is going to go up. You're going to have to give them more. You're going to have to pay more. You're going to have to give them more time with kids or something in order to get them to settle, because they have a perverse incentive to prolong the divorce. So you have to be really careful about that and put some kind of limits on those things, or have it as a decreasing amount or something like that. A lot of different options. Your lawyer will know the best ones. And if you need us to help you, go to softdivorce.com. We'd be happy to help. If you're receiving spousal support, under the current tax laws, you no longer have to pay income tax on that. If you're paying spousal support, you now have to pay the taxes on that before you pay it over. Now, I'm not a tax attorney. I'm a divorce attorney. I'm not giving anybody tax advice, but that's the general law is the person who's paying spousal maintenance now pays the taxes on it. The person receiving it doesn't. The reason why is usually the person receiving it was at a lower tax bracket, so the government was receiving less money. By having it from the paying parent, it's the top marginal tax rate, which is like 40%. This person may be paying 2%. This person paying 40%. So if they're paying $5,000 a month, they actually have to earn like $8,000 in order to be able to pay that.